Governor Johnson, do you believe radical Islam poses a threat to Europe, America, to Western civilization itself?
I'm sorry?
Do you believe radical Islam poses a threat to Europe, to America, to Western civilization itself?
I do. It's a very real threat. I think that Congress needs to get involved in decision-making on how we address this. They have abdicated their responsibility to the president and to the military, and we need an open debate and discussion on how we do deal with this, something that, like I say, has not happened.
Mr. Peterson.
Truly the most dangerous religion in the world is statism. But yes, classical liberalism must be defended from violent ideologies. But if we are to do so, we must do so constitutionally and not necessarily always through force of arms. The Enlightenment must be restored and classical liberal thinking must be defended. And I say that if we are going to fight radical Islam as President of the United States, we must do so within the law, constitutionally, and never go outside the powers of the executive branch. Only go to war if there is a declaration of war. Otherwise, letters of marque and reprisal, and that is the only way that the President has any authority to defend the United States using the U.S. military.
Dr. Feldman, does radical Islam pose a threat to Europe, America, and to Western civilization?
There is no Islamic terrorism. There are Muslim terrorists. We need the people to take the blame, not a religion. Terrorism is not a war, it's a crime. We know how to fight crime. You fight them as criminals. Thank you.
Mr. McAfee?
Terrorism, of course, poses a threat, but there's a far greater threat, and that is the actions of our government which created this terrorism. We drop bombs on families, on hospitals, on innocent people, as well as perhaps the guilty. My God, you would be angry too. You would be frustrated, and what would you do? So if we are the source of the problem, the biggest threat to us is our government, please. We must stop our own aggression.
Mr. Perry.
We, the members of the Libertarian Party, rise in opposition to the cult of the omnipotent state. Tyranny is tyranny and hides behind many religions, but the tyrants are doing the hiding. Freedom is the answer, not more government, not blaming people's religion because tyranny is the problem.
Mr. Peterson, was it wrong for America to have intervened and fought in World War I? Was it wrong for America to have intervened and fought in World War II?
It was wrong to intervene in World War I because the sinking of Lusitania, actually they found out that there were munitions. So they were violating the law by sneaking munitions in past the embargo. But after we are attacked in World War II, we have every right to defend ourselves. But we would have never gotten involved in World War II if we would have stayed the hell out of World War I.
Dr. Feldman?
There are a lot of bright people, and I'm sure if they could find a way not to get into war, they would have done it. I don't have the egotism to try to say that I have a better idea to what I've done at that time. It was a horrible situation, and I don't know whether anything could have been done differently.
Mr. McAfee?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Was it wrong for America to have intervened and fought in World War I? Was it wrong for America to have intervened and fought in World War II?
Well, in World War II, our entire Pacific Fleet was destroyed. We certainly have the right to defend ourselves. What would have happened had we not gotten into the war? In World War I, a far more complex affair and way beyond my time. I'm sorry, I do not have the information to answer.
Mr. Perry?
You most certainly have the right to defend yourself, but you do not have the right to provoke someone to attack you in order to defend yourself. The United States military had boats off the shore of Japan to provoke an attack from Japan so that they could claim self-defense. Was it wrong to intervene? Yes, because I'm not touching you at some point becomes aggression.
Governor Johnson, was it wrong for America to have intervened in World War I, to have intervened in World War II?
I don't know.
Dr. Feldman, we spend more on our military than the next 15 or so nations combined. How large shall our military be? Do we spend too much? Where would you cut?
I tell people I'm not an anarchist or a minarchist. I'm an agnarchist. I'm agnostic. I don't know how big our government should be. I want every
Our military.
And military is part of it. I want every American to decide how much of their taxes do they want to use to support their fellow man and how much to send to our government for drones and surveillance and all the things that support our military industries. We used to manufacture weapons to support our war efforts. Now we manufacture war efforts to support our weapons industries.
Mr. McAfee.
America claims to love peace, and yet we are the most warlike nation on the planet. Name a country that has not been affected by our military activities directly or indirectly. If you can name one, I'll eat one of my shoes. So they do not exist. We do not need to have troops overseas. We can find a use for them here. Some people may have noticed we have problems, real problems here at home.
Mr. Perry.
We do not need troops in 150-something countries in nearly 900 military bases. I would dare say we do not need a standing army, but at the very least I will say we do not need a standing army funded through theft and coercion. The military should be as big as it can be off of donations and bake sales.
Governor Johnson, we spend more on our military than the next 15 or so nations combined. How large should our military be? Do we spend too much? Where would you cut?
I think we spend more than all the other countries in the world combined, just by a little bit, but more than all the other countries in the world combined. I would look to reduce the size of the military, and I don't say defense, I say that it's offense and it's the military. I would be looking to reduce those expenditures by 20%, and that wouldn't be going back but a handful of years. I think you need a real skeptic at the table when it comes to military budgets. The fact that we have 100,000 troops on the ground in Europe, does anybody see the logic in that? And yet it continues to go on and on and on. As I mentioned earlier, we have executive treaties not implemented by Congress. We have executive treaties with 69 countries that we are obliged to defend their borders. This just doesn't seem right. The fact that we have bases anywhere in the world when right now we can fly aircraft from the United States, and because of our refueling capabilities, we really don't need any Air Force bases. So how about a skeptic, and let's start with a 20% reduction in the military, which would not reduce our ability to provide for an impenetrable national defense. Defense.
My pick for Secretary of Defense, General Mad Dog Mattis, had a philosophy, and that is be polite, be professional, but have a plan to kill everyone you meet. I do think we need a strong national defense, but the focus is on defense. We have not had an audit since before 9/11. As President of the United States, I will demand an audit of the Pentagon. The Pentagon, they spent $1.5 trillion on an F-35 program that can't even compete with the F-16. I will find the waste, fraud, and abuse, and we will make meaningful cuts to the military, and we will put a stop to the military-industrial complex in the United States.
Mr. McAfee, would you, as President, pull the United States out of NATO, the International Monetary Fund, and/or the United Nations?
Absolutely.
Mr. Perry?
Absolutely, as soon as possible.
Governor Johnson?
I think that we should have diplomacy to the hilt. I mean, we should engage ourselves in diplomacy to avoid what would, in fact, and is, in fact, a military conflict. I think the greatest threat in the world right now is North Korea. At some point, Kim is going to have intercontinental ballistic missiles that work. How about engaging China in a hand-in-hand, let's do something about North Korea, let's do something about Kim, unify the Koreas, and be able to withdraw our 40,000 troops that are in South Korea.
Mr. Peterson, to pull the United States out of NATO, the International Monetary Fund, and or the United Nations.
If the Congress were to send me appropriate legislation, absolutely.
Dr. Feldman?
I kind of like the United Nations because it doesn't do much, and it's like our Facebook account. It keeps track of what other people are doing and tells us who our friends are. And it's often a big waste of time.
Mr. Perry. Mr. Perry, are libertarians isolationists?
Absolutely not. Calling me an isolationist for not wanting to invade Poland is like calling me a hermit because I don't go invade my neighbor's fridge. Switzerland has one of the best foreign policies in the world, and they are in no way isolationist. How many people have ever had Swiss chocolate, Swiss cheese, and a Swiss Army knife? Non-intervention is not isolation.
Governor Johnson?
Make no mistake, if the United States is attacked, we will attack back. And we should have an invincible national defense, not offense. And so diplomacy to the hilt. Engage countries in talk, in negotiation. Ultimately, negotiation, I think, is free trade. Free trade, I think, unites the world, and that's something that needs to be always promoted. But no, the United States, as President of the United States, no, I'm not isolationist.
Mr. Perry? Mr. Peterson?
It is not we non-interventionists who are isolationists. It is those who go and bomb foreign countries and cause people to hate us that cause us to be more isolated in the world. But some are isolationists, and isn't isolationism splendid sometimes? We have Amish in this country, and they like to have their isolation. That's freedom. That's secession. People ought to be free to be isolated if they so desire. But it is not we non-interventionists who want us to be more isolated. It is time for the government to get the hell out of the Middle East and bring the troops home.
Dr. Feldman, are libertarians isolationists?
We're not isolationists. We just believe in intervening by dropping philanthropy, tourism, free speech, and free trade on other countries instead of bombs.
Mr. McAfee?
Is a country minding its own business isolationism? Is a country opening its borders to free trade and to immigration isolationism? No, it's the opposite of isolationism. Isolationism is wanting to impose your will, your culture, and your own way of life, and our own arrogance onto others in the world.
Let's turn our attention to social policy. Governor Johnson, as between the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, which is the most anti-freedom, anti-libertarian? Or put another way, from a libertarian point of view, which is the lesser of two evils?
That's it, like that's a slam dunk. No, they're both equally, they equally have their warts. And I do say warts. Let's engage them in civil dialogue. The opportunity exists this election to really take from both sides, to try and point out that each side has their strong points, and that's what the Libertarian Party represents, are those strong points on each side.
Mr. Peterson?
They call us the third party. we think we feel like we live in a one-party state because they're really just two wings of the same bird. And one wing loves war and socialism and stimulus and bailouts, and the other one loves welfare and corporatism. The Libertarian Party is the second party in the United States, and when I'm president of the United States, we will finally be a two-party system again.
Dr. Feldman.
Hillary Clinton said that Donald Trump was not qualified to be president. Donald Trump said that Hillary Clinton is not qualified to be president. For the first time, I think they're both right.
Mr. McAfee.
The lesser of two evils is still evil. What we are dealing with are two machines. That's all they are. They have no heart, they have no soul, and they eat up everything that gets caught into them. We're not dealing with Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. We are dealing with two machines, and the question is, would you rather be ground in a meat grounder or sliced and diced? This is it. I would choose neither.
Mr. Perry.
They're both equally evil, and to ask which one is the lesser evil is like asking my favorite STD. I don't have one.
Mr. Peterson. When does life begin? At what point has a pregnancy gone so far that it should be a crime for a woman to have an abortion?
Well, I am not a scientist or a doctor. I do not know when life begins. I believe it most likely begins at conception. And that means that all humans deserve the same right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that includes the unborn.
Dr. Cult of choice.
Dr. Feldman. Do you believe in any form of gun control? Should a child be able to walk into a gun store and get a gun? What about ex-felons? What about automatic weapons like AK-47s or M16s?
I believe in gun control. I believe people should control their guns. I think criminals shouldn't be able to get guns. I don't know how to stop them because they don't seem to follow the law.
Mr. McAfee, do you believe in any form of gun control?
I probably am the most gun advocate in this room. If you find a picture on the internet where I'm not carrying a gun, that's a rare photograph. But no, I do not. Our Constitution has no limits. It doesn't say we have the right to bear arms unless you're under 21, unless you're not a criminal, or unless you're carrying one with a 15-round magazine. No, absolutely not. Let your parents, if you're underage, decide when you can learn to shoot to 22 after you've learned how to cross the fence without shooting yourself. No control. None.
Mr. Perry.
Those who advocate disarming felons for life believe that humans cannot be rehabilitated. I have a friend who 20-plus years ago served 8.5 years in prison for a murder that he did not commit, but he was involved in. Those who advocate gun control say that he should not be able to defend himself, his wife, or his 7-year-old child. I support the right to self-defense, regardless of someone's past, because I believe that humans can rehabilitate themselves.
Governor Johnson, do you believe in any form of gun control?
I don't. I've been a gun supporter my entire life. In 1995, as governor of New Mexico, I got to sign concealed carry legislation, which at that time was really cutting edge. I've stood up through Our America initiative to initiatives to limit the number of bullets in the magazine, limit the caliber of bullets. Look, I'm just in the belief that if you start limiting big caliber guns, only criminals are going to have big caliber guns. If you're going to try and take the guns away from everybody, the criminals are going to be left with the guns.
And the police.
Mr. Peterson.
Oh, I believe in gun control. I think that we need to control the government's use of guns. Honestly, no, it's an enumerated right. I believe in a world where gay married couples can protect their marijuana fields with fully automatic machine guns, baby. Oh, yeah. The Constitution of the United States says shall not be infringed. It is an enumerated right, and it doesn't say muskets. It says arms. We have the right to bear arms, and that right will be protected under a Peterson administration for once and for all.